Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Danny Berkowitz, and I am the Gloss Genius Community Manager. I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming each and every one of you tonight or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and to introduce you to some of the most brilliant minds I've had the pleasure of working with this year and at my time at Gloss Genius. We have some real experts in the industry across the board, and I'm really, really proud to bring them to the forefront for each of you to learn from, to laugh with, and for us to just have a community moment and share this together. So tonight's program is Protecting Your Peace, a mental health roundtable for beauty professionals. If you are joining this call and you don't find yourself in the beauty community, that's okay too. We are really happy and welcome you here tonight. But if you are a part of the beauty pro community and are either just starting out or you're a veteran in the biz, we welcome you as well. And we really want everyone to have a great time tonight. This can be a pretty heavy topic, but we're here to inspire and empower each of you for joining. So a couple housekeeping items. We've got a chat going, and we would love everyone to participate. Please say hello. Let us know where you're calling in from. And we also have the ability to react. We have some heart eyes. We have some thumbs up. If you are celebrating something, I wish they had a snap emoji. I love to snap in celebration of others' wisdom. We've just got a great show for everyone tonight, and I'm really excited to get started. So without further ado, this will be our agenda for this evening. As I mentioned, we'll go through a little bit of an intro so I can introduce you to some of these amazing folks. And then we will go through an exercise together to level set and welcome everyone from all over the country and parts of Canada. Asterisk. We'll also participate together in a meditation. I am a certified breathing instructor, and this is one of the tenets and practices that I love to maintain myself as a community manager and as a community pro. So let's practice what we preach, and we'll do that together. We'll also dive into our roundtable discussion, which is the headliner of this evening, and we'll get to know our amazing panelists and get to ask them about their expertise. Some are licensed mental health professionals, some are spa owners. It really ranges. So I hope that whoever you are joining us tonight, you'll get something out of this that will be really helpful. And speaking of helpful tools, we'll also share some resources that will make it really easy, really easy for you to be successful. And then we'll close with a Q&A. So if you have questions, please do add them to the chat. We have some Gloss Genius team members here to help support me as a moderator. And then also, if you have questions for the panelists, we'll keep track of those so that we can ask them at the end. Sound good? Can I get some reactions? Yes. Heart.
Yay.
Alana, 3D reactions are also wonderful too. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay. Well, without further ado, I would love to introduce our incredible roundtable panel tonight. I'm going to start with the amazing Jessica Gaddy, who is a licensed clinical social worker and the CEO of Neo Noir Therapy and Wellness. She meets us today at an intersection of health and wellness and entrepreneurialism as well. So, Jessica, thank you so much and welcome. Feel free to say hello, each of the panelists. This is, we didn't rehearse this, but we would love for you to say hi, and please share what your pronouns are, and just share your excitement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Again, my name is Jessica Gaddy. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm so excited to be here this evening and share my mental health tips with you all.
Yes, we're so lucky to have you. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Grega Prothero, who is actually a Gloss Genius member for a couple years now and the owner of Grega LA Salon. Grego, I am so happy to welcome you. You are our official Gloss Genius member on the panel tonight. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Grega. I've been in the hair industry for about 17 years and own my salon 2.5 years. So during the pandemic, lovely time. But hey, I'm very happy to be here with everyone, and just to, self-care is very important to me and for the team. So thanks for having me.
So thrilled to have you. And because of your practices and values in mental health, that's what I really wanted to invite you here tonight for. So thank you so much. Next, we have Nina Tulio, who is an industry expert. I think had 27 or 28 years behind the chair before she became an entrepreneur herself and now a podcast host sharing her wisdom. Nina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I am so honored to be here. I think this is so incredible that you're putting this together and bringing us all together. So thank you so much for having me. I'm thankful. So I cannot wait to get started and chat with everyone.
Absolutely. And I did just throw a couple of the Instagram handles for everyone in the chat. So if while you're watching tonight, you are absolutely blown away by all or some of them, please do follow them and connect after this event too. Thank you so much, Nina. Welcome. Next, we have Alana Long, who is the founder and CEO of Longevity Wellness. Fun fact, when I first met Alana, I put 2 and 2 together of Alana Long, Longevity Wellness in the first sentence and nearly fell out of my chair. So Alana, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you as a pro behind the brand, as well as a spa owner and someone who's been in the biz for a while and who has also experienced some incredible journeys in her life while owning a business in the beauty industry. So welcome, Alana. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And as Danny had mentioned, yes, I have dealt with a lot of mental health in the past couple years. And a little background on that is in 2020, I was hit head on by a drunk driver and I had a child lost in a car accident. So while I was dealing with everything in the pandemic, I was also dealing with recovering my own self mentally, physically, and still recovering and continuing to recover from losing a child. So I'm so thankful to be here to share my story and to let everybody know that you can be happy. And there's just so many tips and tools and everything. So thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure to welcome you here tonight. Thank you so much, Alana, and thank you for being brave and sharing this space with us. Next, we have the one, the only Dawn Bradley, known to her fans as the ADHD hairstylist. She's also an educator in the industry, a podcast host, and a content creator who makes fabulous guides and resources to help other pros just like you become confident behind the chair and in making decisions, whether you identify with the neurodivergent community or not. Dawn, welcome.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that amazing intro. I was like anxiously preparing what I was going to say ahead of time, like when you're in school and you're like, there's 5, 4, 3. And I was like, been a hairstylist for over 2 decades, but anxious my entire life. But it's such an honor to be here with everyone. And I just got to give props to, Nina Kovner, because Nina Kovner is the one that gave me permission to show up with my mental health in this industry. And I cried my way through a full day class with her back in, I think it was 2015. And Nina, you just gave me permission to show up and be myself. So I'm so honored to be here and to be in a room and amongst and alongside such amazing individuals. So thank you so much.
Love, panelist love. And truly had no idea that there was a pre-existing relationship with you guys. So I feel doubly lucky that we get to have quite the pair. And, you know, there's a reason why I left Nina for last. So we have one of two Ninas here on the panel tonight. Nina Kovner is an incredible educator, a queer activist, a content creator, a coach for beauty and wellness professionals across the industry. I think that it's actually expanded to anybody. Nina, welcome. We are so grateful to have you tonight. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I'm geeking out introducing you right now.
Dawn, I'm already crying. So thank you for that. I'm so proud of you. I could go on and on. Anyways, thank you. I've been in the industry since 1987. I have my own mental health journey that began in 2007. And this is such an important topic for me personally and for my company, Passion Squared. So Danny, thank you. It's an absolute honor. It's an honor.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. And again, just in these intros, y'all are not even ready for the amazing mic drop moments we're about to have. Speaking of what we want to accomplish tonight, it is my hope and, you know, the background and the reason why Gloss Genius believes so strongly that taking care of yourself helps you take care of your clients, and that can be care in many forms. We hope that by the end of this discussion tonight, you get to walk away with confidence. You get to walk away with confidence and feel inspired by the tools and practices that are offered to maintain those boundaries, create work-life balance, and build healthy routines. Now, that might sound like the back of a cereal box, but what I really hope, and after introducing you to this incredible group of people who are really excited to share what they've learned with you, that you get to walk away feeling a little bit more assured and trusting yourself that you're not on this journey alone. And just because you're independent doesn't mean you have to be alone. And with that, I would love to walk us through a quick mindful meditation. So wherever you are, whoever's listening, and quick note before we start, if you do want to peruse ahead in the slides, please hang tight and be patient, because if you change that for your view, you change that for everyone's view. And I want to, keep everything timely. So let's go ahead and get started. If everyone, make sure that you're muted and go ahead and plant your feet on the ground. And I invite you, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes. Taking a moment to center yourself is one of the easiest gifts that you can give to yourself. I invite each of you to pick a spot in your mind or on the wall and think about what being mindful means to you. Sometimes being mindful can feel daunting with busy schedules, work days, clients, personal lives, kids to pick up. But through that, we are breathing anyway. We might as well make it work for us, right? So now I invite you in a comfortable position, find a way to ground yourself, whether that's your feet on the floor, your bottom in a chair, or if you're lounging on the couch. Feel free to be supported by the earth and by your strong body. Begin by breathing in for 4 counts in an inhale, and exhale through your nose or your mouth. One more time, inhale through your nose, and exhale through your nose or mouth. Focus on elongating the breath and taking your time. One more time, inhale through your nose, Exhale. Really take a moment to recognize how far you have come and all of the accomplishments that you have achieved to get to this moment. The lessons you've learned, the successes that you've had, and the hard work you've put in to become a professional in your field. One last inhale and exhale. Thank you so much for indulging me on that meditation, everyone. And I hope that wherever you are, you feel a little bit safer and comfy, and we're getting ready to dive into it. Okay, let's hop in. We have these 6 extraordinary minds, and one of the questions that I have been dying to ask, and some of you may recognize our amazing panelists from the last week. We've introduced them to our social community and had them share their number one piece of advice when it comes to mental health. Something that we are constantly exploring here at Gloss Genius is the intersection of beauty and wellness and mental health and financial independence and literacy and business acumen that is all blended. I'm curious, and at this point, feel free to popcorn in, any one of y'all. What are ways that you've helped your team, or whether you're at a salon or in a coaching group, how have you helped them be more proactive about mental health and wellness?
I'll go. Immediately when you said that, the thought that popped into my head was like allowing ourselves the grace to be messy. Like, it's okay to not be perfect, and it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to admit it. That's one thing that I always want to make room for, is like creating a judgment-free space where we can show up real, raw, honest, and vulnerable. Because if you don't feel safe, you can't show up yourself. And so that's the first thing that popped into my mind. I just wanted to share.
And I'd like to piggyback on that, Dawn, too, is I agree 100 wholeheartedly with that. And really getting to know your staff or your coworkers and finding what's important to them, what value do they have, why are they doing what they're doing, and what's their personal life outside of in the 4 walls of your business. And if you're knowing what's important to them, on a respectful and professional level, you can understand and be more empathetic to some of the things that they may have be going on as an employer and as a coworker.
One of the things that that we recommend our clients do is incorporating mental health and wellness into the culture, into the promises, into the agreements. And it starts with really caring and setting a clear intention that we prioritize health and wellness, and then with those promises, looking at all the different parts of the business that are either super healthy or super unhealthy, like scheduling, like what resources are available. So it really, if you have a team, of course, or tenants, if you're a lease-based business, or even if you're solo, we have to make that decision that it matters. And that's, yes, it starts with us, with leadership. Does it matter? And if it does, there are many ways that you can create, as Dawn said, a safe, supportive space.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Especially life happens, right? We get so busy working. And I think just taking the moments to remind them, hey, if there's important times in your life, to take that time off. And like one of the stylists, for example, we have the flexibility of the schedule where her sister is just having a baby and we're in California, her sister's in Florida. And I encourage them, you should absolutely be there. Like, this is such important moments in your life you don't want to miss. And it's also understanding people need to do that and they need to be with their family or whatever, like you said, like priorities to you. And I very much encourage people to feel like they don't have to miss out on important events in life due to work only.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I agree also. I mean, I agree with what everyone is saying. I also think it's important for the team to understand that they come first. And it starts with communication. And like Nina said, it really starts with the foundation, the culture, the core values. And so I was a commissioned salon owner for 11 years, and I had a team, on rotation, could be 6, 7 people at a time. And I think one of the most important things as a leader is to create safe spaces. And what that really means, and what it means to me, is that if they have an issue or they're upset about something, or they feel like they are stressed, that they can come to us, that they feel safe enough to come to us. And right now, more than ever, people are looking to feel valued. They're looking to feel included, and they're looking to really feel like they are important. And it all starts with the leadership, and it starts with the culture, and it starts with the conversation. But more so for the leader, it is about truly being aware. It's being aware and mindful of your people. And it is opening up those conversations and making sure that they feel so comfortable to come to you, and have sometimes tough and uncomfortable situations in that, then you can be a resource for them.
So kind of jumping in from a mental health professional perspective, I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners, some being salon owners and wellness-based professionals. And I love what everyone is sharing about kind of understanding values and setting a culture, a salon culture that's based on the tenets of wellness and self-care. I think what Alana mentioned is so important, understanding your own personal values and understanding what is important to you, because that's going to help you establish your own boundaries as a business owner. If you prioritize your family time and making sure that you are picking your child up at 3 p.m. when they get out of school, or making sure that you're home in time for dinner, if that is important to you and that's an absolute non-negotiable, then your schedule and your salon times and your client times should be built around that. And so that's really important, to really have a sit-down conversation with yourself to recognize, hey, what is important to me, and how do I make my business work for me and my lifestyle? Versus, I think we get so easily into the routine of bending ourselves over, or kind of being very flexible to the needs of other people, that we really then neglect ourselves. So I really love what you guys are sharing about values and creating a salon culture around that as well.
Jessica, thank you for sharing that. As a recovering codependent and workaholic, that's literally my story, and it almost ended my life. And I'm not being dramatic. This is a mental health discussion. I literally prioritized everything and everyone, and not myself. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And just to add a little bit more onto both of what y'all are saying too, is I think that with COVID, obviously we had a lot of difficulties with what COVID presented to our business, but I do think that the workforce overall has really evolved to putting their mental health and their priorities first. And as business owners, we've had to change and be able to navigate that as well. And it's very much for the better. If the staff is feeling fulfilled and that their work-life balance actually matters, they're going to show up for you and know that they're putting in 100% for your business because they truly know that you care about them. And I think just leading by example too, within my business, they've gone on this whole journey with me in my personal healing. So I have an open communication with them of some of my own struggles, and they've been along the way with me. And so being a supportive leader to not only them, but then sharing that I too have these same issues has created a very open space and a very loving environment where we're now focused on a common goal, because genuinely everybody cares about each other.
Oh, that's so important. I think the vulnerability piece, the vulnerability piece to that, I think, is so important. And, I'll speak for myself, but I know we all have our own story, going through being a salon owner and always feeling the need to be perfect.
Yeah.
And also really struggling with anxiety and panic attacks pretty much since I can remember, even starting into middle school, and trying to work through and manage that. The safe space for me, the space the safe space for me was my salon. And so I think it was very easy to be vulnerable with my team, and even now to be vulnerable on my platforms and with the people that I work with and coach and educate. I think it's so important to share that and share the story, because now it brings people into that community and it makes them feel like they're not alone. And so I love, Alana, that you mentioned that the vulnerability piece. I think we get so hung up on being perfect. I just took a class and it was all about leadership and culture, and the heavy emphasis was being a great leader but not a perfect leader. And I think that we all make mistakes and discoveries, right? And it's so important to share that with your team and be vulnerable for them, because they feel that connection and that authenticity, that it really makes them want to connect more with you and feel safer with you.
I couldn't agree more, Nina.
I kind of want to, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead,
no, go
Greta.
ahead. It's okay. Go for it.
I want to tap into what Nina's sharing, because I think it's so important. You guys are talking about vulnerability and safe spaces. And for a lot of your clients too, the salon is an extension of kind of this hypothetical therapy chair, right? A lot of clients may not be exploring therapy, but kind of use that salon chair as their own safe space, right? I'm sure as salon owners or, beauty professionals, you guys are hearing so many different stories from your clients, and they're kind of bringing, their challenges into this space, and it might be the only safe space that they have. So I think it's important on kind of both ends as a beauty professional to maybe explore things like mental health first aid. So that way you're able to kind of recognize some of those warning signs and risk factors of what your clients are sharing, and then be able to have some resource to be able to share with them if you're maybe feeling alarmed by what they're sharing. But then also empowering yourself as a beauty professional to say, hey, I may not have the capacity to be the support that you need right now, because what you're sharing is heavy. And I'm also dealing with a lot of my own, challenges, or I'm just not in that mental headspace to be the support that you need. But how can I support you in a way that is comfortable, or that I do have the capacity for? I think going back to boundaries, I'm always going to go back to boundaries. That's a way of setting your own boundary as a professional, and so that you're also protecting yourself, because carrying all of that information, it's heavy at times. I'm a therapist. I know the weight that carries. So for that not to be your profession, and for you not to be equipped necessarily with the skill to carry that, it can be very taxing. And so to be able to also establish those boundaries with your clients and feel empowered in doing so, I think is also incredibly important.
Jessica, thank you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Be There certificate from the Born This Way Foundation. That's what we recommend our clients take themselves as leaders, but also invite their other, teams or colleagues or whoever. It's just a great kind of like level set education on how to respond to someone who is in distress. Not from a therapy, obviously not a therapist, but just an everyday human being, a coworker, a leader, whatever. It's really fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. So important.
Yeah, thank you for that resource. That's a great resource.
Wow. And that was just the first question. I mean, we're having fun now. Here's what I'm hearing. If you're starting off at level 1, 101, establishing mental health practices for you or for your team, it's what is your values? Maybe that is a conversation you need to have with yourself, a conversation you need to have with your co-leaders in your salon or spa, or even just as a team widely. And I think that buy-in actually will encourage that trust even further. So it's a lot of establishing what those values are, like Nina Kay was mentioning. And then another piece of this is the permission to mess up and the permission to not know all the answers and not need to be an expert. And quite frankly, that's why we've brought these incredible people here today, because you shouldn't have to do this alone. And even Grega, who is a salon owner and connected through Gloss Genius and using these tools, I heard you mention this the other day when we chatted, that you encourage Gloss Genius to people who you know are not even using it yet, because you're like, save yourself. What is that kind of experience that you have had in sharing a tool out of, hey, let me just extend a hand and help you out?
It doesn't even have to be the people at the salon. I hear, for my nail person or facial, and I hear, I know what they're going through in a way. And I tell them, okay, instead of going back and forth and texting, trust me, I know it's scary at first to do online, but this program specifically, it really helps you out and saves you so much time. And I know new things are always scary, but I just try to tell them, like, you will save yourself from having to constantly tell the people the same thing, your cancellation policy, all that, and just whatever just gives us free time. Like you don't need to be going back and forth anymore. Have something as much as we can, delegate it, and free up some space so we don't have to do all that.
100%. And I know that in the past you've said that what you want the world to know about Grega LA and your story is that even when the odds seem really high, you have to keep reminding yourself about what that grounding why is. So I have actually 2 more questions for you, Grega. The first one is, what is it that keeps you going and gives you peace of mind, even when you're taking these big swings? Like in a pandemic, opening up your own salon. So what keeps you going? And then my second question is, what is your advice to stylists who may be really nervous? And I know you kind of just touched on that, but what is it that you would actually say? Because here at Gloss Genius, we're like all about being real. And, we want to just keep it really authentic. So I'd love to start there.
Well, what keeps me going is just, since I'm still behind the chair too, I try to think back of, like, what kind of environment would I love to work in? Like, not just, okay, I'm opening a business, this and that, but also going, other times I've been in different types of salons, like what didn't work, what was too toxic. And it's like, I want to create a space that I want to work at, right? Like, I want to be around other like-minded individuals who want to just create and be a team and work together. And I think just kind of reminding, like, would I want to be treated that way? Like, really having empathy in that sense of going, like, if I were to be in this type of situation, would I want that to be done to me? So I think it's just always remembering, like, I want to really lead like a heartfelt kind of business, and to always really stick to that and remind myself, like, that's why I want to do this, because I want to create an environment that I want to work at, and I want everyone to feel good at too. Yeah.
And what would you say to somebody who is really nervous? Like, if they were your friend or even a stranger on the street?
Like, nervous as far as like starting the hair biz, or?
Yeah, I would say maybe to keep it a little bit topical. What if we said, what if somebody was really nervous about establishing those values, like we were talking about a second ago, kind of scared to like bring this up?
I think you just have to keep reminding yourself what's the most important, like who you do it for, why you do this. And I think always putting them, just constantly reminding yourself when times get tough, just remember what your core values are and just trying to stick with it. And remember that when you create a good environment, it just, that's where you want to be, right?
And if y'all haven't checked out Grega's salon yet, you have to. I want to co-work from there. Next time I'm in LA, I'll be hitting you up. It looks like a gorgeous space, and it doesn't even feel like what I am used to as a traditional salon. It feels really serene, funky, and kind of like the cool friend who you always wanted to hang out at her house after school, that kind of vibe. So thank you so much, Grega. So Jessica, I know that you were sharing some of your expertise, and thank you for inspiring us on that theme of it doesn't need to be perfect. And Nina T, you were also mentioning this as well. Like, it's about, don't worry, just do. This is something that I myself am growing and glowing through. But Jessica, I had a couple questions for you. At Gloss Genius, we are all about providing our professionals with all of the resources that they need to achieve their dreams, open up that salon, finish school, anything that is their number one priority. That's why we go way beyond providing a product. We have conversations like this. We throw events. We provide resources and knowledge and education. We organize events that make it possible for anyone, whether they're just starting out or a veteran in the industry, to listen to people like you who are experts in their field. So I would love to know, as a therapist, I'd love to hear your insights on how creating a positive community can empower professionals. And it's not just toxic positivity where everything has to be happy all the time, 24/7. That's just not real. That's not realistic. But how does maintaining a positive environment impact an individual?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I think for new entrepreneurs, or, when you mention the kind of ambivalence or anxiety about getting started in this space, community is paramount. That's what's going to really give you the confidence and inspiration, because you feel like you have mentors, you have people that you can ask questions to. You mentioned Gloss Genius, keeping it real. You need a community that's going to keep it real with you. Starting a business is not easy. It's not easy. And those first couple of years, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to probably spend money that you're going to look at and say, oh, that was probably a bad purchase, or that might have been a mistake. And I think someone mentioned earlier when we got started, like offering yourself the grace to fail, and fail fast. That's kind of one of my mottos. I want to fail fast, because that's how you learn, is making those mistakes and saying, I'm not going to do that again. But having the community around you who is kind of in the same boat, who has maybe made the same mistakes, there's a lot of compassion there. There's a lot of empathy there, where they're able to say, yeah, I did the same thing. This is what I did differently. You have those resources, you have that support, you have, people that you can look to and say, oh, they're doing that this way. Maybe I can try that. Or maybe I don't want to try that. And so that community aspect is really essential in kind of starting this new endeavor, and just giving you the confidence and easing that anxiety of stepping into this playing field. For me, it's, I kind of look at things like, well, if they're able to do it and they're able to kind of, like you said, struggle and glow through it, then I can also do it. And yes, I anticipate that there are going to be mistakes, and I can offer myself grace, but I have the community that surrounds me to support me through that. Through those challenges. And when I'm starting to question myself or feel that bit of imposter syndrome, I have people that understand what I'm going through, and can support me in a different way that maybe our family can't, because they truly just don't understand the industry or the business. So having people that get it is just critical.
Yeah, I agree to that, Jessica, because it's also, like you said, like community is so important. And I think we need to have that different aspects, like different group, like maybe not only just hair industry people, but salon owners, leadership, community, because maybe some things, as much as our partners want to relate to us, unless someone has a business or in a leadership role, you need to bounce ideas off of each other and feel like it's a safe place to do that. And I think by having that kind of community, like different aspects, that you have that, and then you have your actual hair industry group that gets their beauty industry, and you can't always talk about formulas and how it went wrong. Your friends will be like, yeah, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I feel bad for you. So it's really important to have like a community that gets it and that you feel supported in.
Absolutely. And that also extends to your online community as well. The pages that you follow, the social media that you consume, you want it to be a positive space, not only for your business, but for your mental health. Someone dropped in the chat, like the mindset of being an entrepreneur, you want to be surrounded by that. You want to feel empowered to make really difficult decisions. as a business owner, and the community that you create around you physically and virtually is important because that's all that you're consuming. So you want to make sure that both of those are healthy environments.
I mean, preaching to the choir, as somebody who relies on community in my own world and in my own life, not just the community in my neighborhood, the community in my profession, the community at my job, but that definitely is a guiding factor in who and how we become. And you really hit the nail on the head, Jessica. That was one of the things I wanted to touch on as well, because I think that is a mental health tool alone, is having your community. I keep wanting to use the word family, but not in that kind of family. There is some chosen family that you can trust and have those relationships with, and perhaps like even challenging one another and keeping each other accountable. I don't know if you knew this, but at Gloss Genius, we have an amazing community program. It comprises of 3 different cohorts that our members are able to be a part of, depending on their desire to get involved and their activity on Gloss Genius. And it comes with a bunch of benefits and opportunities, and there's amazing exclusive events like this that you get to attend and potentially even participate in on the roundtable. But we also have an incredible forum that is asynchronous and not in a live event form, although we do meet monthly anyway. But that community helps. I've just seen folks from one end of the country to the other support one another in similar situations and similar salon styles, even in similar trajectories of where they're heading in their career. And they've helped each other grow, and it's really powerful. And I think for beauty pros especially, since your job is to service others all the time, who is servicing you? And so really, you can't pour from an empty cup. That's one of my favorite sayings, and something that I try to remind our incredible community is that you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself first, so to say. Well, let me go back to a question that I have for the group, and I'd love for us to popcorn again, because these are just so fun when we do that. So on the topic of community, how does community change the game? Whether it's a group on Facebook, like Jessica was mentioning, that's specific to your profession or your niche, or whether that is community that you have with one other person. Why is community important to mental health?
I think overall, it really has to do with the support. And just going back into the chat, somebody had mentioned something about having mentors and needing a mentorship. And really, I think for me, I've had a mentor probably about 3-4 years now. And that is one of the greatest things that have been not only for my confidence level, but for helping for guidance. It can be very lonely being a solo practitioner to being the leader or the CEO of a major company. And really nobody tells you if you're doing a good job or not, So having somebody that's giving you feedback, telling you they like or dislike your ideas, but having somebody to just be able to share your ideas with and help guide you is so invaluable to your own personal well-being and progressing forward. And finding community, again, with similar industries or internet or business groups or whatever, it allows you to feel like you are not alone. I am a part of a small business group where I sit on a board with, actually it's all male, so it's a little different, but some of these businesses are multi-million-dollar businesses, and they have the same problems that I do. And so it really is just so allowing me to feel less isolated, to feel that entrepreneurship is a journey and we're all going through it together. And if we are able to share and support one another, it makes a world of difference for your own personal well-being within your business.
absolutely. And I want to add to that too, because it's so important what you mentioned. And I think when we think of community, you know, as humans, we crave connection. We want to be a part of something. And that's why so many of us struggled during COVID, because we were isolated and we were removed from the environments where we felt at times maybe the safest, or we had that camaraderie and we had that dialogue and communication and banter with other people that were in a lot of ways our support system. And so when we think about, or when I think about community, especially when it comes to mental health, it really is about bringing people together and letting people know that they don't have to do anything alone. Listen, like Alana mentioned, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, how much money your business is doing, whether you're a solopreneur, you're a commission, you're hybrid, all of the things, right? We all are going through something. And it is so important for people to understand that they have other people to lean on. And when you have and add the vulnerability aspect to it, and you know, if it's, I'll just speak for myself, if it's me talking about this through email campaigns or social media or on a platform like this and saying, hey, I'm struggling, I've been struggling, I've been doing all of the things when it comes to anxiety and panic attacks, and and it's okay, you know, and if you're struggling, it's okay too. And if you wake up one day and you feel like you're not okay, that's okay. You know, I think this level of being perfect and this level of having to be okay all the time is shifting, which I love. But I think it's these conversations and this sense of community that's allowing people to feel safe and comfortable to say, you know what? I don't feel good today. I am having a hard time today. You know what? Today I really didn't even want to get out of bed. It's okay. And that sense of community and support is giving that support and foundation.
As someone who struggles with pretty intense depression and in the last few years, complex grief and trauma, not all communities are safe. And depression and grief and trauma can be very isolating as well, you know? And so I think you have to be careful and really look to people that you either know or have that experience or that compassion and grace and empathy, or really work with your therapist or, you know, local resources to work within groups that have nothing to do with this beauty industry, have nothing to do with Gloss Genius, have nothing to do. Some of this stuff is really serious. I think for me, I always want to make clear when we're working with our community and clients that there's mental health and mental illness and there's mental wellness. And so we just want to make sure that if you really are having you're in distress, as Jessica was saying earlier, identifying those different situations where someone may be struggling with a thing, but not really in serious distress. I think that really differentiates what community we tap into. In my experience, there are many communities in the professional beauty space that are incredibly dangerous and harmful and not good for mental health or wellness. So I think when we talk about community, we have to keep that in context. Yeah.
No, that's a really great point, Nina. And I try to, thank you so much for pointing that out. That is a really real element to navigating, finding your crew. I will say that you are a great resource for helping us find what are those, you know, safe or brave communities that folks can feel comfortable in. So if you do have suggestions of some of the ones you've had positive experiences in, I know this is your whole.
I wish I did. I mean, I can tell you, anyone on this panel, if they have a community, that would be the
100%. And that's why each of you have been, you know, asked to join. But I, as a community manager and kind of gatherer myself, I have noticed that there's been a shift in what it means to say that there's a safe space and what it means to create and harness a safe space that potentially
It's
may
really
not.
different. And you know, we've all seen this, because not only are we dealing with perfectionism, we're dealing with comparison, we're dealing with bullies, we're dealing with lack of boundaries. There's so many things that it's not just the professional beauty space, it's the world. But tonight we're talking about the professional beauty space. It is creating a significant harm, and sometimes something that people aren't aware of, because you know, I mean, it's a lot coming at people these days, you know. So I mean, healthy boundaries help. However, sometimes we don't even realize we're in a harmful situation. I love Brene Brown talks about her square squad. There's these just a few people, right? And so there's that. However, even with that, if like my best friends in my square squad, they may have no clue what's going on with my mental distress. In fact, I don't have a lot of family or friends that do really understand what I go through. And that's maybe alarming to some people, because I've been going through it live since 2007. There just aren't a lot of people. So I'm always going to inject context into any conversation that I'm invited to. And, you know, Jessica is really the one that I'm always going to look to provide that guidance when we are in real mental health situations versus mental wellness situations, where yes, community, us right here, this is good for our souls. This is connection. This is a really beautiful thing, and this is super healthy. So anyways,
That's a great transition. I was going to say that, you know, community is one very strong piece of managing boundaries and feeling less alone, and the opportunity to connect with others who you might as well would not have connected with face to face. This brings me to my next couple questions, which are all around those tactile or tangible tools that folks can whip out their pocket in good, bad, in between days that will support and encourage to take a breath, to take a pause. Alana, was that you? I think that was your advice for the community right before this event started, was remembering to take that pause. So I would love to talk next about what are those tools that you use yourself or that you would suggest. And I'm actually going to direct my first couple questions to Dawn, because I know that your life's work and brand, I know you've learned a lot from Nina, who has been an amazing mentor to you. But in terms of your own work, and what really caught my eye was that you go by the ADHD hairstylist. Now, number one, I really respect you being out as an ADHD hairstylist, I should say, but also just that vulnerability and breaking the stigma around what it means to have neurodivergence or have some learning disabilities or focus less than skills. It is totally a spectrum, and I'd love to hear about your experience navigating that and how you built your brand on making it easier for others who identify.
Yeah, I mean, talk about focus. I was like, when you were talking before, I was like, oh, I have a really good story for that, and I want to like jump right into that and not forget it. And then it's like, okay, but be present and listen to what she's saying right now, because you got to listen to what she's asking you. So can I like share a quick story? Is that okay?
If you don't, I'd be so sad. You have that microphone. That microphone is begging you to tell a story.
Because you were talking about like tools to use, and immediately it went to this moment where the first time I charged over $500 for a color, and I was really nervous. The anxiety was coming up, the overthinking, the overanalyzing, and I had talked to my client ahead of time. She signed off on it. It was okay. And then at the end of the appointment, I like handed her the debit machine, and she went, whoa, I've never paid this much for my hair before. And immediately I went into like defensive mode. And like in the split second, I was ready to be like, but you already said like you, and like I was ready to like fight. And then I was also at this simultaneously ready to like emotionally discount and be like, oh yeah, okay. And I just like stopped and was like, thank God I had my water bottle there, and like let my brain catch up with my body. And that is like one of the best tools. And then as I like had that 1 second pause, she continued and said, but I've never loved my hair this much. And I realized in that moment that we can assign meaning to words that people say to us based on how we're feeling. And she was just saying, oh, I've never paid this much before, but I've never loved my hair. But because I was feeling insecure and anxious and overthinking it and overanalyzing it, I assumed she was like, bitch, I don't want to pay this money. Right. Like, and I just like totally went way on the other side. And I realized, okay, like, especially in a world of like texting and DMing, we can get so offended so quickly from a tone that we assign coming from a place of insecurity. And especially as ADHD, I was only diagnosed 2 years ago and my life makes sense all of a sudden. Realizing like rejection sensitivity is a real thing. And like the fear of clients being upset. And so that people pleasing tendency, that self-abandonment tendency of like, as long as I can, it's not about people pleasing. I always say it's about, you're actually a people disappointer because you're saying yes to something in the moment to only defer disappointment later. And if I can learn to be honest and upfront and honor my clients, then I actually can please other people, and realizing that like that self-abandonment doesn't do anyone any favors. Does that make sense? Sometimes my ADHD ramble goes on and on.
What was it? You said people disappointer?
Yeah, you're not a people pleaser, you're a people disappointer. So oftentimes we say yes to things to try to, this is my standpoint anyway, in my opinion, you say yes to create a predictable response in someone. And the fear of conflict, the fear of confrontation, the fear of a possible combative interaction goes, what can I say to this person to control their response back to me in a positive way? So it's not about actually doing something that pleases them. It's about having control over the situation, in my experience. So that person that's like, have been black box dyeing their hair for 12 years and is like, I want to go platinum. And I would back in the day would have been like, yeah, totally. And then gone to the back room and prayed to the hair gods and science to change because there's no way it was going to happen. But I already committed to it because I didn't want them to second guess my ability instead of having confidence in like, that's not possible. So like I always say, like, are you people pleasing to genuinely make someone happy? Or are you trying to create a predictable response in them to avoid an uncomfortable situation that you don't feel confident in? That was a lot of words.
Well, Dawn, I think you just brought up a very good point too, is managing the client's expectations and managing what you can actually do for that. And, you know, when we're new in the industry, we think, okay, we got to do it all. We have to, and again, I'm in a different industry with massage, but yes, I can do all these things in this 1 hour. And if we're not managing what was actually possible, then of course we're going to have a client that's coming out in an unhappy service. And making sure that we are communicative in what we can actually do. And it also builds value by being truthful and honest with your clients and bringing the possibilities and then in turn having future appointments. So I think that you put in or you commented so lovely about managing expectations or also people pleasing, but that just translates to having a clear boundary of what you can actually provide in that service and feeling confident in educating the client about that so that you are able to deliver what is actually possible and having client satisfaction. And then of course, then job satisfaction by being yourself and standing true to what's important to you.
Yeah. And I was going to say from like a focus standpoint, because my brain's now catching up with what Danny actually asked me, is that, yeah, thank you. I feel seen and welcome. Like I used to be with a client and be like, what color did I put in that last foil? Like oh my gosh, what was the, like, am I, like, my brain would just like short circuit, or like, you know how like when you're reading a book and you read the whole page, but you don't remember reading the page, I'd have that in the middle of doing someone's hair. And I'd be like, how come all I can hear is my coworker's conversation and I can't hear my client? And realizing for me personally, like moving out of a busy, loud salon and into a place that there was no salon suites when I went out on my own. I think they exist in the States, but I'm in Canada. So I just like found a small space, and everyone's like, you're not going to like build a salon with like staff. And I'm like, I think I just want to work alone. And my work improved tenfold because all of a sudden I'd created an environment that worked for the way I could focus. And that realization for me is like not following what I thought was the path to success in the industry, which I think it's changed now. But back then it was like, you know, if you're going to go beyond commission, you're going to have a salon and you're going to have staff. And like, there wasn't this like salon suite model. And going, just because no one else has done it doesn't mean you can't. It actually is like a great opportunity for you to do it because no one else is doing it, and finding what works for you to show up best for you. And then because you're showing up best for you, you can show up best for your clients.
I mean, mic drop. I think that is so relatable, Dawn, for anyone who is experiencing or and discovering themselves, perhaps because, and let me just say, there's been a huge influx of folks who are now getting diagnosed with different oh my God, I'm blanking on the word now to remain as,
I'm not the only one that does that.
I think that there's a lot of discovery happening, and it came from discussion and community saying, hey, maybe you may feel this way too. Now, Jessica, I'm sure that you as a licensed and clinical social worker and therapist are probably like, you should not probably get diagnosed off of TikTok. However, I personally have witnessed what that community aspect and how that has positively impacted folks to maybe like stay curious about themselves and perhaps ask their doctor, ask their medical provider, hey, I was experiencing these symptoms. I'm curious, is this something that I could get medication, help with, resources, you name it? And that is so powerful because it just starts with looking inward to say, maybe you don't have like a attention deficit disorder, but perhaps there are other ways to eliminate loud noises, maybe a bit less busy salon, creating different workarounds. Isn't that what life is just creating shortcuts as much as you can so that you have an easier time? I mean, it's not if nobody else is doing this, then I must be a weirdo, but I'm constantly trying to think, how can we make this easy? And my coworkers make fun of me all the time because if it's not in like a beautiful deck or an organized document, then my brain won't work. And so there are ways that everybody's got their own like isms with that. Dawn, I'm curious about what are the most stress-free strategic steps that a professional can take to optimize time and maximize their income? I know that that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, stress-free ways to optimize their time. Honestly, stop overcomplicating things, which is so easy to say. And I put a post up the other day where I said, what if the hardest thing you had to do was let it be easy? And I think from the ADHD brain, if things are easy, I think I'm doing it wrong because everything's been so hard always. And like, I remember it's really hard to like admit like not great thoughts that you've had. But I remember having this thought in high school where I'm like, I'm smarter than my friend. How come she gets better grades than me? And how like, because things always seemed 10 times harder. And before I got diagnosed with ADHD at 38 years old, I was diagnosed with depression at 19, and just feeling, I'm also like in the thick of some shit right now. So if I like burst into tears, I know there's like other stuff that's like coming out right now too. But like feeling this, like, it's so unfair that I have to deal with stuff and it has to be harder, right? And so I think like recognizing what works for you isn't necessarily what works for other people, and being really careful. Like I always say to people, like, I'm not going to be the educator for everyone, because what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. But if you relate to my story and if you relate to how my brain works, then we might be a really good fit. And I just want to help create conscious consumers of like, there's really good marketing out there, and you need to be aware of like, who and what do you relate to and what are you wanting to create? Because I was really focused on just making money for a long time, that I didn't focus on how I made the money. And that's how I ended up bawling my eyes out in a Nina Kovner class. I mean, I don't want to share part of your story, but she shared part of her story, and I was envious of a part of her story that, I mean, I just came home and was like, I just want to check myself into the hospital, but I wouldn't, and I couldn't. And like that wanting to be able to like have a break. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm making sense anymore, but realizing like finding people that get it and that see you and you can relate to what they've been through, and there may be a step or two ahead. And knowing that like that's going to help you find the most stress-free way. Because if you're dealing with mental health, if you struggle with depression or anxiety, like oftentimes I think we make things harder because it's always been hard. So we don't trust when it's easy. But finding simplicity and ease is actually like the best thing you can do for yourself. Did I just make it complicated trying to say make it simple and easy?
No,
No.
that was
You're
awesome.
getting all the love on the chat right now, Dawn, too. By
Oh,
the way.
good. I'm like, I'm going to have a vulnerability hangover after that, I
Can I
think.
add to what Dawn is saying? Because I think, thank you, Dawn, for sharing that on such a public platform. I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but there's a power that comes with vulnerability, and there's a power that comes with kind of owning your differences and owning your uniqueness. And whether that's, what you're dealing with mentally, and kind of just recognizing like, hey, I am going through a depression, and just kind of putting a identification to that. Or, hey, I am, managing ADHD, and that's just what it is. It doesn't have to be this big scary cloud. It doesn't have to be this thing. It just is.
Mhm.
And once we are able to just kind of identify that, then we are able to reach out and seek the tools that are necessary to manage that accordingly. Danny, to your point, I'm all about, mental health information on TikTok, on social media. But to Nina's point earlier, like some of those places, they do need to be vetted. It's great information. It's a great touch point, but it's intended to be it's just information, right? We just absorb it and then we say, okay, what am I going to do with this? Do I want to seek a professional opinion to see, okay, maybe I do have a neurodivergent difference. Maybe I am dealing with ADHD and I just kind of want to get some more information on that. But I think sometimes we rely solely on TikTok and social media that it becomes like our WebMD, and then all of a sudden you have cancer. And it's just like, okay, what just happened? So it is that discernment to get information from these spaces and say, okay, I do want to explore, is this something that I'm dealing with? And okay, like if there is a word for it, great. At least I know now what it is, and I know I can look for some tools and some strategies to manage this. And then I can build my community around that, and I can, explore and create discernment around what communities feel safe for me to be able to create these vulnerable spaces and to feel vulnerable enough to share my story and to own my story and to create boundaries around that. Right? Dawn, I'm sure in your journey, you've had to, just like you mentioned with your salon, that was a boundary that you set. Like, hey, I operate best in this setting, so I need to create an environment that is conducive for me. Someone mentioned in the chat earlier, we're all human. We're human. And the important piece about being an entrepreneur is that you get to create an environment that is for you. And there's a mindset shift that has to happen too, because sometimes we operate out of a space of lack, that we think if we implement boundaries, if we, are true to our boundaries and we say, hey, I can't do that, or I don't feel comfortable dyeing your hair platinum blonde when it's not in the healthiest condition, we feel like we're going to be losing out on clientele. We feel like we're going to be losing out on all these different opportunities, when really those boundaries are also our integrity. And that's what's keeping us safe. That's what's keeping us accountable. That's what's keeping us in business. And I also feel like I'm rambling right now, but there's so much that was shared that wasn't, I just want to touch on and kind of pull together that all of those things are so important as, you guys continue to grow in business, that owning kind of these differences as your superpower, building boundaries around that, and then building communities, safe communities around that, is so important as you continue on this journey, and also getting to know yourself.
Can I ask you a quick question, Jessica? Is that okay if I jump in real quick?
Of course.
Because my thought has always been like, even like getting a diagnosis is a tool, not a crutch. And for me, it's
Absolutely.
like, I'm like, okay, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I don't want to use this to like hold me back, but how can I use this as a tool? Because I think like even when I got diagnosed with depression, I went home and cried because I was like, what? I'm depressed.
Yeah.
and then using it as a way to like keep myself and hold myself back, and like kind of boxing myself in a label, rather than like, this doesn't need to define me, but this is a tool to help me understand myself better.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Again, I see it as information, right?
Mhm.
What we choose, I always say, eat the chicken, spit out the bones. What resonates with you resonates with you. A diagnosis just provides us with information. It provides us mental health professionals, medical professionals, like, okay, this was something that maybe someone diagnosed before. Let me explore that further and see if that's still true. Let me
Yeah.
explore that further to see if there's other nuances that were missed, or let me explore and see if that was wrong. And then let's create a plan around that so that we can get you the right support. We can get you the right medication. We can give you the right education or community for that.
Yeah.
But receiving that as again, just information rather than like a death sentence or this just like
Yeah.
giant label plastered on your forehead, that's how we eliminate a lot of the stigma that exists in our communities, because we're normalizing it as just, okay, it's just, it just is. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be this big scary thing. It just is.
Yeah. I love that.
And just Dawn, something you had mentioned about understanding your feelings too. I think that the culture that we are now in is through, I mean, I listen to a lot of motivational speakers, and it's like grind, grind, grind. Don't stop until you never sleep. Don't stop until you're done. If you're sleeping, you're not trying. And like, I think you had some comments about feeling guilty if you weren't up till 12 o'clock at night, up and getting up at 4 a.m. to just do it all over again. And to me, I really struggle with that culture and that message, because that's eliminating all of the things that we just talked about with Jessica and with Donna too, of taking the time to explore what our each individualism is and what makes us each tick. And so I think as business owners, we get wrapped into, well, I see so-and-so having 5 businesses and never sleeping and, doing this and this and this and this. Why am I not doing this? And what's wrong with me? And we just need to focus on ourselves and take a minute and do what step by step procedurally and exploring and everything what works for us, not works for what we're being told.
I love that. I always joke because there's like so many people are like, successful people get up at like 4 a.m. and go for a run. And I'm like, can we talk about my bedtime routine?
Yes.
Like I have a weighted blanket. I have a white noise machine. Like I go to bed at 8 p.m.
because they don't talk about self-care very often.
Yeah. And also like for me, so when I'm stressed, or when I have like stress happening in my internal or external world, like a lot of people like can't sleep, where I'm the opposite, where even tonight on this call, I'm like okay, wow, my body's just wanting to like run away by falling asleep, and learning that like sometimes I just need to let myself lay in bed, and that's okay. Like we need to prioritize rest, and we need to prioritize like being lazy. Like being lazy can actually be the best way to become the most successful version of yourself. I say lazy because we think resting is lazy in this day and age, which is crazy, but realizing like we need to have balance, which isn't something that like, it's a constant like reevaluation of where are things at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to jump on that because Don used this word balance, and I think it's funny because I don't think things can ever really be balanced, right? Balance means that there's kind of this equity or this equilibrium.
Yeah.
I like to use the word harmony, where maybe other things have priority, but they're working kind of harmoniously or like symbiotically, where like things are functioning. And maybe in this season, your mental health is, you know, absolute priority, or your physical health is priority. And so maybe the salon needs might diminish quite a bit, or they might reduce. And in a different season, that might alternate. So
Mhm.
it does require kind of taking inventory of what your body is telling you, what your needs are telling you, and then really taking that seriously so that you're able to reassess. I think that helps a lot with kind of mitigating burnout, because you're listening to yourself and you're saying, hey, like my work right now, I'm seeing 6 to 8 clients a day. My physical health, I'm not able to, you know, take my medication on time, or I'm not able to make it to the gym, or, you know, I'm standing all day and it's putting a strain on my back and all of these things. And so we're out of balance, right? There's So to be able to create that sense of harmony, it's okay, well, maybe I need to reduce my clientele so that I can focus on these other things that are more important to me. Because without you being healthy, you have no successful business, right? Things are going to fall, things are going to be put on the back burner, and it's only ultimately going to burn you out because there's no harmony in what's going on in your personal life, and that's going to ultimately affect your business as well.
Absolutely. There's a really good book called Peaks and Valleys. It's like an hour-long audiobook, and it's like that whole, like, you know, when you're on a peak, you know that a valley's coming, so it doesn't, like, it's about like not being like up and down, but eventually like learning how to like have it more like this. There's going to be better times, there's going to be lower times, but the more you prepare for them but don't turn a blind eye to them, you can kind of roll through them a lot better.
We talk about finding your rhythm. I
Yeah.
think balance, Jessica, thank you. And Dawn, balance is, I'm going to be 57. I haven't found it. I gave up on it a long time ago. And I feel like it's like a self-sabotage tool. I feel like it's this thing that doesn't exist, but we think we're the only ones that don't, you know, can't find it. So it's rhythm for, you know, for me and for our clients. Jessica, I love how you talked about harmony. It's exhausting. Exhausting. Like, what's this? Like, I remember when I was like a young executive, starting in the business world of the business, and I remember like these people would put up these pie charts, and it's like, this is your work and this is your health, and I'm like, what? Like, it's not. That's not reality. That's not the world. And there's so much surrender and peace. We're talking about protecting our peace that comes when we're like, F that pie chart. That's not real. I am going to play with my rhythm. I'm going to play with harmony. I'm going to surrender to the peaks and valleys, or peaks and valleys, right? You said, oh, what a relief. What a relief. Yes.
I
I
feel.
think what's so important to add, I'm sorry. Ooh, I'm
no.
sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Nina.
I
I was
want to
just
add this.
Oh, I think that our connection is a little lagged. And Nina, I want to let you know that unfortunately we haven't been able to see you unless it's just my computer, but you have been the crispest audio this entire time. And just the internet gods are just, I told you, they're interneting. And so please, 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 I've been wanting to curve around to get back to you. I don't want you to feel like we're not calling on you. I feel your energy. So please bestow us with what you had to say.
No worries. I can see everyone, so I don't know what's up. Sorry you guys can't see me, but I'm glad my video's crisp. That's a good thing. I think another important element to this is social media, because the social media aspect of it has put so much pressure, so much stress, so much comparison, right? Ooh, look what they're doing. I have to do what they're doing. And if I don't work, you know, as hard, or I don't show up as much, sorry, my computer. If I show up as much, if I do X, Y, Z, then I'm not doing the thing. And I think what is so incredibly important, and so many of you have mentioned it on this call, is listening to yourself. And I think what I found so helpful, and I know Nina talks a lot about this, about unplugging, which I personally have a hard time doing, unplugging from social media. And so every time Nina talks about, like, okay, Nina's saying I need to do this, so I got my shit together because I have unplugged, because I have been on 10. But guess what happened? I feel like it comes to us when we need it most. So about a month ago, my Facebook and Instagram were hacked. And feel like if we're not going to pause, and we're not going to take a break, we're not going to stop conversing, and we're not going to do all the things that are waving the flag or waving in front of us, then I'm going to do it for you. And so I think the added element of social media is great in so many ways, don't get me wrong, great function, but like you mentioned, there's toxicity to it, and anything in excess becomes weakness. And if we are overdoing social media, becomes a weakness, can take over. I think what I've learned is that everything in moderation. And yes, it's important to show up social media, but showing up as your authentic self when you feel it's good for you, not because you need to post 3 times a day and post that doesn't matter because you just have to show up 3 times a day. Like, that's not work anymore. So I think are becoming more intentional, and myself included, because I had that wake up call. You're not gonna shut them. I'm gonna shut them for you. And I around this conversation of mental health, we have to tap into self. From what I'm gathering and what I'm seeing even through the chat, it's like we have to tap to self and do what feels good for us. And sometimes that means a pause. Sometimes that means showing up. Sometimes that means not coming into a class on social media. Sometimes that's just being there for you. And I'm learning, just everybody else, how important it is to take a pause and really have a shift, and almost like blocking blinders, where I'm like, I need to just stay focused on what is going to be beneficial for me, so I can continue to fill into and spit into people, and in a way that's positive and is authentic. So I'm sorry you can't see me because I'm doing a lot of talking with my hands. I hope that this is coming across, because the social media aspect of this is so important. And I want to point out to me, I know that we don't, communicate so much on social media, but your message is so powerful. It's like, connect, listen to yourself, take a moment, be more present, and it is making impact. And when I see it, it is a reminder of calm down, pay attention to what's in front of you, pay attention to your family, pay attention to your dogs, pay attention to what's happening outside. It's not all about social media, and we have to compare our own journey to anyone else's, because your journey is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Be right back. I'm going to go get that as a tattoo. Your journey is enough. Done. Nina, you are so inspirational. And I know that at the International Beauty Show in New York, you gave an incredible and inspiring, informative talk to attendees. If you have a YouTube of that or a recording, please drop it in the chat, because it was so inspiring to me. And it was one of the things that made me want to ask you to join us here today. And I would love to continue listening to your podcast as well, because I feel like you drop a lot of wisdom like that. And for somebody who has such a large following like you, Nina, it feels really special and important and authentic to hear from you that is not the most important thing in your life. And that in order for you to balance that, you have to navigate it well. I'm going to take a quick moment here to include that, Gloss Genius has brought us here together today. A couple of the incredible features that we include on our software, in my opinion, directly tied to mental health preparedness and awareness and security, because with the ability to have text marketing, to be able to do waivers, forms, ask for deposits, asking for what you're worth is one of the scariest things that you can do. And I'm sure, Jessica, we were talking about imposter syndrome earlier. That is so, I mean, shame, money, and women, great trio. Ever heard of it? Like, it's so connected. And I've always wondered why, but through the work we've done with Gloss Genius community, it's become very apparent that not feeling confident can really bog you down. And so having tools that help you feel confident, whether it's just knowing what's on your book the next day, to knowing that if somebody doesn't make their appointment, they've already made a deposit and there's a cancellation fee that you've set up, you've clearly made that boundary. And it's not just to keep people out, it's to protect what's in. So we do have a sign up QR code for anybody who's listening and to try Gloss Genius for the first time. This is your chance to do so. But for those of you who have joined us here tonight and have asked questions, I'd love to zoom on into that portion of the evening, because believe it or not, we've been talking here, which feels like days, and I could go on for more days to continue this conversation, because I want to make a podcast, the seven of us, done, or a musical.
Musical.
I knew Nina would love that. Yes, Dawn, you too. Okay, so a couple questions from the audience that we've seen come through. First, the chat has been on fire tonight, and I am so grateful to every single one of our incredible community members who joined us this evening. The answer to everybody's number one question is yes, this will be recorded and you will get a recording after this call is done. So don't worry about that. You'll be able to take notes and listen in like a podcast throughout your week if you'd like. So as far as the questions go, one of the top ones that we saw come in was that big word balance. And I'd say its compatriot is burnout. How do you maintain balance without burning out from maintaining the balance? I think it's like a cyclical thing, right? So if anybody has any thoughts off the top of their head, Alana, I know you did answer Karen in the chat. So why don't we start with you since you had something to share about that already.
So finding balance, that it's a journey. A few years ago, I almost died, as I had mentioned. So I just celebrated, or I should say, I just honored my son's 3-year anniversary of passing. So with that happening and almost losing my own life, I really, really evaluated what was important to me. And so that it was a major, major mind shift in my life situation. Mommy, oh my goodness.
Nico.
This is like the perfect timing for balance.
I know.
Well, he's very important in my life situation, and being a mom and everything is too. Maybe I'm going to opt out of this one. I don't know how he got in here, and take a little break and let somebody else answer for a second while I can get this.
No worries, Alana. Being a mom is an incredible job, and thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Dominic is a cutie, and he was part of our prep call as well. He really likes the limelight. Anybody else want to jump in terms of burnout, balance, bamboozled?
I was just going to say, like, for me, it's like not in like, when I think of balance, it's not like, how do I like have everything get its right amount? It's going, what's priority right now?
Mm-hmm.
And then putting my focus on what's priority so that like I can give myself permission to let go of other things. And so I feel like the last 18 months of my life, my mental health has been priority. And I've been making sure that I do things for that, where previous to that, it was, I was really focusing on building my business and in the past, I've like, the priority's been so like I've had my blinders on where I've like neglected everything to the point where I burn out. And then it's like picking up the pieces. So for me, it's like, what's priority and how do I maintain these things without trying to like, I always like think I can do the work of 3 people. It's just my like toxic trait. And like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. And realizing, okay, this is priority. I will then just maintain these things so that I don't get to a burnout where like everything crashes and burns. And then I need to like pick up the pieces, but like kind of finding not balance in everything gets the same amount, but like this gets priority. And then this just gets maintenance.
And healthy boundaries help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so much of the burnout that I experience with our clients is just a lack of boundaries. And whether it's, you know, people pleasing, people disappointing, you know, whichever way you want to look at that, it's really founded in codependency. And it's like, I just am going to say yes, 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 yes. And that builds my self-worth, and everyone's going to love me, and I'm in control of everything. And now I'm resentful, angry, miserable, and burnt out. You know, I think sometimes we maybe confuse just exhaustion. Like, I'm tired. Like, you work hard. I mean, it's okay to be exhausted. Like, you know, there's good feelings around exhaustion from working really hard on a project or having some like marathon client, you know, day. We all have those. We have those. That's not burnout, like the danger of real burnout. So again, a little context is always important when we're talking about, you know, those concepts.
And Danny, I'd love to jump back in now that I'm back in my business woman's hat instead of mommy. I think the one thing I would like to say to everybody on this chat, and it's funny, Danny, I actually got this tattoo when I was on a whim at a conference, but it's my junkiest tattoo, but it's be you. And I have learned that if you are not truly yourself and you're putting on a front or a mask when you're going into your business, that you are going to burn out because you're not allowing yourself to come through. And so being true to myself, who I am now is who I always am. There's no falsities or fakeness to who I am. And that has allowed me to genuinely connect with everybody I meet because I am true to myself. And so in the same circle, being true to myself is also being very true to my emotions. And I talked about this in my intro video, that I have learned that if I don't feel my feelings, they're not going anywhere. They're just going to come out in a different way. And so for me to go through the emotions that I'm processing, and I've done so much work in terms of different types of therapies, from mediumship to, you know, everything. So, but if you need to really feel who you are, and through those things, you're able to connect with not only yourself, but through others with conversations, and being your true self is going to take you in the direction that you need to go. You're no longer going to do an appointment because you feel like you have to, or because somebody's telling you to do that. You put your priorities first, you put yourself first, and you're genuine, and that's going to allow you to have the fulfillment in your career and in your path.
And so special coming from you, Alana, because I know that the trauma and journey that you went through, not only with your own body, but with what you experienced with your son, is something that's part of your why. And forgive me if I'm speaking.
No, you're 100% correct. And really, I'm just so thankful that y'all asked me to be on this conversation, because really, in my accident, my baby protected me. I would have died if I were not pregnant. And so I feel like he was like a gift to me to be here on this earth again, to continue to do what I'm doing. And not only through helping people in my wellness center, but now through public speaking. I do a lot of public speaking on behalf of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and it's really given me purpose and an outlet. But I've learned through that again, vulnerable and to show who I really am to those that I meet. You know, it could be a stranger and we may be crying together, you know, or I could be hugging them and rubbing their back or whatever. But I would say my 100% advice is being yourself, because if you put on that you can only be somebody else so long before it starts to really negatively affect your mental health. And that once you learn to do that, and once you learn that happiness comes from within you, not from validation on social media or a partner or how many dollars you make or, you know, whatever it may be. But once you learn to truly make yourself happy, and that can take a very long time and it can take a lot of uncomfortable feelings. But once you learn that you are in control of your happiness, and, you know, of course there's external factors, but once you learn that, your power radiates, and your self-confidence and everything, you just grow so much with it.
I just want to reach through and hug you.
I'm trying not to cry because it obviously was just a very emotional weekend for us and everything. And my son Travis is just looking over us from heaven. But again, I just feel very, very blessed that he kept me here on this earth to be a force for helping to heal others, you know.
Thank you so much for sharing that and being so vulnerable with us on such a public forum. But I also feel like nobody else is here. It's just us. And you are a force. And I feel that even in our first couple interactions with one another. And I'm really, really glad that our community and our industry has someone like you who not only is about the grit and the, you know, fighting through it and survival, but is also about carving out that time for you. And I know, Nina Tullio, it was your quote around taking that pause, but in order for you to recognize, you know, what that event served in your life or whatever you feel comfortable with knowing, you know, it's all connected. So thank you so much, Alana. It's such a pleasure to speak with you this evening. And thanks for sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
You've gotten lots of love in the chat too.
Oh, thank you.
Well, if I have just a couple more minutes, I want to make sure that I touch on one more element that I saw through the chat, which is creating little moves that make your life a little easier, especially when dealing with setting boundaries or having a little bit like difficult conversations. There's some amazing books that are being recommended in the chat as well, which we will share out after the fact. Let me go ahead and just get my presentation up here really quickly, because I did put together some tools and resources for putting yourself and your business first this summer. And if today is the first day that you're thinking about this, welcome. If it's something that you think about all the time, welcome. On Gloss Genius, we, like I said, we're not just a software. I'm not just here to like pound in some details around a software, but really to invite you to be a part of our larger community, which is all about education, empathy, and really the empowerment that you have in this industry. So for everyone tonight, and I will follow up with the email that will have the recording, is a free guide that we have on beating imposter syndrome and making what you're worth, and you know, doubling down on who you are. Finding what your why is, being you, as Alana says, which love that, by the way. We have a couple blog posts as well that are just easy reads and really helpful and kind of get down and dirty in terms of what are the 7 F words for Beauty Pro to focus on. I'll let you click on that so you can find out the surprise. How to deal with a toxic salon work environment. That's actually a blog that's been shared in the chat. So if you want to look at it immediately, just scroll up in the chat from tonight. You can see that one of our team members shared it. And then I also found some industry tools that are not not from Gloss Genius, but I thought were really helpful as well. Oh, sorry, one more thing from Gloss Genius as well as forms. If you're an esthetician, if you are running a team, if you need forms implemented, this is something that Gloss Genius now offers. So it's just another element of managing work and leaving it as work versus letting it bleed over into the rest of your life so that you can have those blinders on, like Nina was saying. So as far as other industry tools, L'Oreal Professional just actually came out with a Head Up for Hair Pros mental health course, and it has a couple different modules. It's awesome. And one of the folks, one of their global ambassadors, is actually going to join us for our Pride Community Night next month. So that's a little teaser for that. But as far as some more mental health resources for beauty pros or salon owners, we've got some conversations that you can join. If you go to Gloss Genius Instagram, you can join this conversation that our whole community is having, is why you ask clients to fill out a form or a waiver in your salon. Why is that important to you? Establishing what those boundaries mean to you can help someone else or even your clients understand what those values really boil down to. And somebody in the chat mentioned that they're a Sola professional in a salon suite, and they actually interview their clients before their first appointment. That is absolutely thorough. I think it was Krista who mentioned that, who's one of our Gloss Genius community members. Hey, Krista, who mentioned that. And I just think that that's amazing. Even if you can't make time to interview somebody face-to-face, FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meet, things like that can totally help you out as well. We are so lucky that everyone has let us talk to them and talk their ears off for almost 2 hours. And I am just so grateful to each of our panelists for joining us tonight and for sharing such incredible wisdom that I know will stick with me and I'll be thinking about for the next couple weeks, and especially when I need to make a hard decision or when one of our pros comes and asks for help. Thank you to each of you. Please, for our panelists, I'd just love to have one quick round of applause. I know that everyone's on their own mute and microphone situation, but just absolutely thank you so much to each of our panelists. If you are new to the Gloss Genius conversation and want to sign up, this QR code will lead you to our sign up page. And each of our panelists as well are available for you to connect with offline. Feel free to introduce yourself over DM. I think that some of the Instagrams were shared as well. But either way, if you go to the Gloss Genius Instagram, they're all tagged. Thank you again. And just to each of you who are joining us from all over, thanks for sharing the space with us and trusting us to lead such an important conversation. I'm so grateful to each of our panelists and family members, I guess now. Hard line between family and friends, but thank you all. And I hope that you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Danny.
For having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.